Welcome to the BA Coaches Show. I'm your host, Coach BA, and my guest today is a very special guest to me. And I have to say, he's one of my favorite recent players, like in recent memory. We're about the same age. I grew up, I grew up a Nebraska fan throughout my whole life, and just these last few seasons, my guest today, Nick Henrich, has been one of my favorite players playing linebacker. I love the way he plays linebacker. So, Nick, thank you for joining me today.
Appreciate you having me on, Coach. Good to be here.
So one of the first kind of questions I had for you, like I said, we're kind of the same age. I think I'm like 6-7 months older than you,
Which is crazy.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit old. I grew up a huge Nebraska fan. I played football growing up. I was obviously nowhere near the talent you were, but I had aspirations as a child to play football for the University of Nebraska. You growing up in Nebraska, in Omaha, before I ask you my next question, did you grow up a Nebraska fan?
It's like kind of surprised a lot of people, but honestly, no. My dad was from Iowa. My mom's from Minnesota, so they were both. My dad's family was mainly Iowa fans, and then my mom's family was mainly Minnesota fans. So I grew up obviously watching Nebraska and knowing the history because being around it, but I wouldn't say I was a huge Husker fan growing up.
Yeah, I was just curious because growing up in Omaha, I was kind of curious what your recruiting process was like. Uh, like if you didn't grow up a Nebraska fan, I'm kind of curious. Like, was Nebraska always the plan, or like were you open to other? Like, what would just kind of walk me through your recruiting process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was very open when I got my first offer as a sophomore. I think it was from South Dakota State, then Minnesota. I didn't even know you could get recruited that young, honestly. Like I was completely oblivious to that fact. And so I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then started getting more offers and kind of, like I said, my dad and mom were Iowa and Minnesota fans, but we all kind of came together and we're like, hey, let's just go in with an open mind and like we've never watched college football before and see, kind of see what feels right, like what staff feels right. And that's what we did. And ended up really aligning with Coach Rude a lot. And Nebraska staff at that time, I really did believe in it. And that's why I committed to it. So, but I went in with a real open mind in recruiting.
I gotcha. What was it? The coaching staff that really made you decide on Nebraska? Was it the coaching staff that was in place?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of hype behind, Frost coming back to Nebraska. And
Oh yeah, trust me, I'm aware.
yeah, I know you
I
are.
was
Yeah.
I was
And
fully bought into it, man.
yes, I was too. So that's when I was going through the process, I was looking at, some other schools pretty close to like, Iowa, Notre Dame. And I really thought, man, how cool would it be to be one of the building blocks of this, historically a great program. And I was like, I think this is a staff that's going to really turn it around. And it's funny, one of my main reasons for committing was I wanted no change. Like I wanted the staff to be there. And I was like, oh,
Oh
this
wow,
staff's gonna be there.
how
I
wrong you
know.
were.
I could not have been more incorrect, but that was one of the stability was huge for me. And I was like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this staff's gonna be intact. And yeah, that didn't work out, but I really did believe in that staff a lot.
Oh yeah. So whenever you get to Lincoln, right? You
Hmm.
redshirted your first year,
Yep.
but I believe you made it on the field once that first year, if I remember correctly. You made it
Yeah.
on. I want to say the Wisconsin game. I could be wrong. I was reading some stuff and trying to remember.
Yeah, I think it was because I had a shoulder surgery where I was at
Yeah.
most of the year, and I think I was on the Wisconsin game. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like to take the field for the first time? Although you were not a Nebraska like fan growing up,
Hmm.
living in Omaha, there's no way you can avoid the hype of being you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
being in
100%.
Omaha, you still like so I'll say I live down here in Kansas City.
Uh-huh.
I am in no way a Chiefs fan at all, right?
Okay, good.
But like but there's no way to ignore all the Chiefs stuff around me all the time.
Right.
And the only reason I'm kind of throwing that in there is there's no way that you growing up in Omaha were not you there's no way you could avoid all the Nebraska Cornhusker stuff
Yeah,
everywhere. Right.
right.
So what was that like to take the field for the first time as in a historic program like Nebraska that you grew up around?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it didn't even feel real, like, when I ran out there. I remember running out of the tunnel first time in a just jersey because I wasn't cleared, and that was
Mhm.
surreal to me, and then the moment running on the field, I seriously don't even remember the play. Like I think it was kickoff return, and I probably just completely whiffed, honestly, and I was just out there. It's like this is so my heart's beating 200 beats per minute or something. But it was a really really surreal feeling, and I'll never forget it. It was sweet.
Yeah. Whenever you got to Nebraska, were you aware of like a lot of the history behind the whole black shirts, like what that meant to Nebraska? Because I know some players, you were in state, so I think you would, but I know a lot of players that maybe don't grow up Nebraska fans, especially like closer to our age, that weren't
Mhm.
around for a lot of those 90s championships, don't really know the meaning. Were you aware of that big tradition and meaning behind that?
Yeah, I was for sure. I think just like you said, it's kind of impossible to grow up and not be
Hmm.
around
Yeah.
it. So I knew how much the black shirts meant, and I was really looking forward to being a part of that tradition and having a goal of getting my black shirt. It's the one thing like I'll always keep that. I'll always have it
Yeah.
hanging up wherever I'm at, and that was really special to me.
That's good because one of the things I was going to ask you today was how special was that? Do you remember when you got your first black shirt? Like
Oh, yeah.
I hear stories of players that like they cried when they got that black shirt. Like it meant that much to them. Like
Yeah.
how special was getting that first black shirt to you?
Man, I remember we were in a bit of a position battle too between me, Luke, Reimer, and Chris
Mhm,
Kolarvik. So we
mhm,
knew two out of us three was going to get it, but we didn't really know who. We kind of both, me and Chris both were talking. We were like, we knew Luke was going to get it because
yeah,
he was a stud. But
fair enough.
yeah, we're like, okay, yeah, he's probably one of them. So I remember just when they were handing them out, just like, man, am I going to get it? Like I've been working so hard. I felt like I earned it, but when just being handed that and having Jay Foreman gave me my black shirt, and
Mhm.
I have a good relationship with him, and he just hearing what he was saying about me and everything, it was really special to have a former black shirt, you know, induct me into that family almost. It was a really cool moment.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I'm glad that that means a lot to you as
Hmm.
someone who, from the outside, like that makes me joyed to know that like players in the program still carry that on. Because, like I said, I'm around your age. I wasn't around for a lot of those things, but to me, from the outside, that's one of my favorite things about
Yeah.
Nebraska. It's one of my favorites, honestly. And
Hmm.
I have friends that aren't Nebraska fans just being around here. And one of the first, like, I tell them all about the whole black shirt, the
Yeah.
tradition behind it and how it started, how it really kind of started by accident
Yeah.
back in the late 60s, early 70s. Can't remember the exact year, but those black shirts just was because they got a good deal on it. The equipment
Hmm.
manager got a good deal on it
This
at
is
the sport.
crazy. Yeah.
That's such a crazy thing because something that me and my dad have joked about in the past is like, so you're telling me that if they were having trouble selling green jerseys, would the green shirt, like,
The
what I'm
green shirt, yeah,
like,
black.
it's just I think the black, it just kind of is kind of like a badass kind of look, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
of
And you
course,
get the
yeah.
whole skull and crossbones thing. So I think that definitely helped take it off. What I
Hmm.
always kind of joke about, like, what would that have looked like if it wasn't if they weren't able to get the only reason he bought black, the story that I remember and it was always told growing up was he was supposed to go get something to differentiate. He was supposed to go get red or white, but he got a
Uh-huh.
really good deal on black.
Yeah.
So that's why
Like,
he came
guys,
back
we
with
need
black.
these. I know that's wild. I
Yeah,
couldn't imagine. It's weird. I can't imagine not having a black shirt too. It's just
yeah.
like something you, like you said, you've grown up hearing,
Mhm.
and then you get to the university, and that's all anyone on defense talks about is like,
Yeah.
got to get my black shirt, got to get my black shirt, and it was
Mhm.
special to be able to earn one.
Oh yeah, so my first time ever coming up to visit a Nebraska football practice was last August.
Hmm.
And one of the first things I looked for is, all right, I got to find the black shirts. I need to see this thing up close in person.
Oh
It's
yeah.
literally one of the. So when I got there, I was in the indoor, and you guys were coming up, warming up, or doing whatever you did. In the first, I was like, okay, I got as close as I could to a few of those black shirts, just so I could see one.
Yeah.
Get as close as I can to one, because that was cool. That was a really cool moment for me because I am never was gonna be in a position to ever get just to be able to get that close was really
Hmm.
cool for me. And something
Yeah.
I was just as excited about that as I was to learn from the coaching staff at Nebraska last year. That was really
Yeah.
cool too. But I really wanted to see the black shirts up close in person. It was a really
Yeah.
cool thing. Um,
Definitely.
in 2022, you were a captain, right?
Yep. Hmm.
On the team. What was that like to be a captain at the University of Nebraska? Like You, like
Mhm.
I said earlier, like you grow, you know how important that is, and how, hey, I'll say crazy people like me, how crazy people like me are all about the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Like you have millions of people rallying behind you to be
Yeah.
a captain on that squad. What did that mean? Like, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, I think other than Blackshirt, that like coming recruiting, I remember that was like a huge goal. Like wherever I was going to go, like I want to be a team captain. Like that's something that I was a captain in high school, and I
Mhm.
always viewed myself as a leader, and I think I did it the right way. And I remember Coach Rude in recruiting told me, "Is like I seriously believe you'll be a captain." And to look him in the eye and hug him after he got announced captain,
Yeah.
that was another really special moment because anytime you're in a position where your entire team is pointing to you and saying,
Mhm.
you know, we're not saying you're the best player, like we're not, but you're the one we want leading you. Like that
Yeah.
to me meant more than anything. And
Mhm.
any sort of play I had or good game I had, that's pales into comparison to being named captain. So that was really, really special.
Yeah, and I'll say from a coach's perspective, I think a lot of those things is you can't set who those leaders are going to be. You
Hmm.
can't set who those, like, as a coach, you could, I don't think this is a very good way to do it, but you could say, all right, this is our captain right here.
Yeah.
Like a terrible way to do that.
Yeah.
I think anything that's player led is definitely the way to go. And yeah, again, like I said, you can't choose who those leaders are going to be. Like I've
Hmm.
coached teams where some guys that we thought kind of going into the offseason in the summer were going to be the leaders. Like, oh, this guy's going to be a starting quarterback. But it's like, no, it's really, this guy here that's really rallying the troops. And
Hmm.
I think to have someone like you be that captain, I think that was a really, really good thing. Cause like I said, you're a well spoken dude, right? Hey, I know you're not going to hype yourself up too much, but you're a really good football player,
Oh,
right?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
you're, and I think you kind of embodied a lot of what the Nebraska black shirt tradition is kind of supposed to be. I feel like because although you didn't grow up in Nebraska, like a Nebraska fan, you're an in-state guy.
Hmm.
You know, you're a really hard worker. You put on some really good weight once you got to the University of Nebraska on that strength and conditioning staff. I actually saw a picture of you when I was kind of looking some things up. I saw a picture of you from like a camp before your senior year.
Yeah, scary, man. I was twigging. I mean, I look
It's
back, I'm like,
crazy. It's crazy to think about.
oh yeah, I was like 190 soaking wet,
Yeah.
maybe 200. And I look at myself, I'm like, why did y'all offer me, man? Like, no,
It's
yeah.
crazy, but hey, you were a dog in high school though. You were a
Oh,
dog.
thank you. Yeah, I no, we had some good teams in high school and really,
Yeah,
really good players too, along with myself and Xavier Watts. Like seeing him ball out now has been really
yeah.
special, and yeah, we had some fun there.
Oh yeah. Um, so kind of one of the harder questions I was going to ask you here. This is one I've been trying to figure out how to word, but you know what? I'm just gonna ask you.
Go for
Okay.
it, man. Yeah.
2021. I don't think I'm breaking any news to anyone or there's any disagreement. It was not a good season. Do we
No,
agree on that? Okay.
yes, we
A
can.
three win season. I'm not great. And my question though about that was there was obviously a lot of noise from the outside, just the Nebraska fandom. And it's going to be like that in any fandom. But I
Mhm.
think at the University of Nebraska, with there being no NFL team, no NBA team, like Nebraska Cornhusker football is what the state rallies behind, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So there was obviously a lot of noise about the season not going well. The
Mhm.
question I'm kind of asking is did that affect the locker room at all? Like, does that seek? Because I'll tell you, I've never been at like I've coached high school football, even in some big high school football programs. No one cares that much. I've even coached some. I've coached a team that did very bad, and like yes, the old men at the coffee shop are upset, but outside
Yeah,
of that, no one really cares. You know what I mean?
yeah, it's like, all right,
So
Meg, yeah.
yeah, I'm curious that at the University of Nebraska, a historic program that has so much support, with I'll say a lot of people were all on air, like kind of trashing just the whole thing.
Oh, for
Does
sure, yeah.
does that seep into the locker room a little bit?
I honestly, I don't think so. Not as much as people think. I mean, it's
Yeah.
definitely. I think it's more of an individual. Like some players let them affect it more than
Hmm.
others. And for example, like I'm just going to use Adrian because I'm really
Yeah.
close with him. But Adrian got a lot of unnecessary hate that he frankly
Yeah.
didn't deserve. And everyone in the locker room knew that. So it kind of pissed us off. But,
Yeah.
guys from the media are just, he's a quarterback. So, you know what I mean? They see him throw 3 picks in one game, which he had once, or, and they're like, oh, it's over. But they don't know, like, okay, this 2 of them weren't his fault. And
Yes.
it's
Yes.
tough.
Yes.
So I think as a team, honestly, not really. We
Mhm.
kind of rallied behind it, if anything. Like Coach Rude helped our group out a lot because he was like, fellas, I've been in this situation before where you're working hard, you do the right things, and you're one play short. Like it sucks, but we
Mhm.
got to go play the next week.
Yeah.
And while we did only win 3 games,
Hey, before you keep going, I will die on this hill. That's the best 3-9 team of
oh
all time.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I know people don't, but like, I'm serious.
yeah.
It's the best 3-win team of all time.
Someone write that in ink. The best 3-win team of all time. It was there's no debate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was proud of the fact that we did, there's no moral victories at all. Like, don't
Mhm.
get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I remember Coach Rude said this too. He was like, this is a game about respect. And we had a
Mhm.
crap ton of respect from, every big dog, Ohio State, Michigan. Like, they didn't want to play us. We were a tough team to
Mhm.
play. But for whatever reason, we couldn't finish and we couldn't pull it together. And that was
Yeah.
super frustrating.
Mhm.
So it
I
was
I know it was much more frustrating for you guys, but I'll say on the outside, it was frustrating for us as well.
it
in a
might have been,
in a different way,
yeah.
because like you guys are putting all the blood, sweat, and tears into it. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
But I can only imagine how that was feeling from the inside. But I
Oh,
will say, despite that 3-win season, I think something that really I kind of want to get your opinion on this, but that really shows how the Nebraska fandom is
hmm
despite that season, the results not going well. Like that Michigan game is one of the craziest environments in like again, that was a team that only won 3 games that year.
yeah.
And that Michigan game is one of the craziest crowds that I've seen.
I think it was the craziest crowd I've ever personally been in, and I really don't think it was close, honestly. That
Mhm.
was just
Yeah.
outrageous. But it does speak volumes to, Nebraska. Like some you might get trashed on a whatever show
Yeah.
or a podcast here and there, but at the end of the day, Nebraska fans are going to be super supportive, and they're going to show up and they're going to cheer loud and they're going to want the best for the team. So
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, we got the frustration more than anyone. We're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we want to win too, guys. It sucks, but
Yeah.
it was encouraging to still see fans show up, and
Mhm.
there was a lot of positive support too. It
Yeah.
wasn't all negative. It was like, we lost to Ohio State by a touchdown. Like that's
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know. That was the weirdest year of football ever. And that was really my first year playing a lot. Like my
Mhm.
first year starting 12
Yeah.
games. So like me and Luke always look back on that year with really good memories because me and him started 12 games together and played some good
Mhm.
football. But it
Yeah.
was it was a wild year, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, that is one of the weirdest seasons. I just remember telling all of my friends that are not like all my coaching buddies who are giving me a really hard time. Like, oh, I'm like, guys, I promise if you just watch the games,
Uh-huh.
Nebraska's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I promise. It's right there. I know
Yeah.
no one believes me. I've been saying it for 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
We're right there. I
It was so
promise.
close. Yeah. Oh, it was brutal. It was brutal, man. A lot of heartbreakers. A lot of good teams we played that year
Yeah.
too. That was a tough
Oh,
schedule.
yeah, that was a very tough schedule. And like I said, you guys were right there. And going into 2022, I really thought that was going to change. And I think there was some improvements throughout the thing. But I'll say, what do you think? I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Is another tougher question.
hmm
But I'll go pause. 2022 defensively, especially to start the year, didn't start great.
No,
I don't think there's any contention there.
no, not at all.
What do you think was part of the problem, do you think, with that?
Yeah, it's hard to say, but I think a lot of the issues we had in 2021 too, or in
Mhm.
2022 were covered up by the fact that we had some just freaks of nature
Yeah.
as far as like, your Ben Stillies or your Damian Daniels and your Cam
Yeah.
Taylor Britts. Like we just had
Yeah.
we were loaded on defense, and you had, Deontay at Markel at safety. Like, we had depth, and we were really, really explosive, and it kind of
Mhm.
made up for a lot. And when you're
Yeah.
playing that kind of, defense, quarter, half,
Yeah.
there can be some holes, and everyone has to be on the same page. And
Mhm.
for whatever reason, we just started off like, I don't know. It was weird. We were confident going into the season because we still had guys, like we still had
Yeah,
good
yeah, yeah.
athletes and good players. But I think maybe, yeah, I don't know. We just lost to Northwestern, and then from there it was, the Georgia Southern happened, and after that it was like, damn.
I will tell you this. I've told this story before, and I'll just tell you this story because I really like you. Okay,
Hmm.
that Georgia Southern game might have been, as a fan, one of the worst nights of my life. And,
Oh
and
yeah,
here and here's the reason. And here's the reason why. Okay, I my wife had never been to a Nebraska Cornhusker game.
bad
She
one to
she
go.
she
Bad one
she
to
never
start.
she never been to one. Okay, and I had a very bad tradition of I felt like every game because living 3.5 hours away, I
Hmm.
couldn't go to every single game. Right, I tried to go up to a couple a year. I was terrible luck, and you guys seemed to lose every time I was there. So I'm taking my wife to this game. We didn't have anything going on because I was at the time volunteer coaching with our youth program at the
Hmm.
school district I was at. We had a bye week for the youth program, so it was going to be perfect. I'm going to
Great.
come up to Lincoln. It's Georgia Southern.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. And again, I'm not trying to bring up any, but I'll just say that was a tough. I'll tell you this: I don't know if I've ever gotten so drunk after a game in my entire
Just
life.
buried all real deep and like, oh, that's unbelievable.
uh, but hey, so I promise I was going somewhere with that. So although the defense in 2022 was bad,
Hmm.
2023 last season was fantastic. It was about as good of a. I'll be like I expected the defense to be pretty good. You guys
Hmm.
surpassed my expectations, like in a very good way. What
Hmm.
do you think the biggest change? Do you think it was bringing in all new coaches? I'm not throwing shade at any of the previous coaches. Do you think it
Right.
was just having a new voice, having the brand new scheme in there? What do you think was the biggest jump for the defense?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, like we still talk about that. Like, we'd
Mhm.
laugh after games and be like, I don't know how we just did that. Honestly, like we
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like it was almost a point of, I don't know. It's like we're just playing for each other, and it certainly
Mhm.
helped a lot. Anytime you bring, we learned a lot from that old staff. I'm not saying that we learned a
Yeah,
ton
yeah,
from
yeah.
them, and then you bring in another new staff of super smart guys. You just kind of build off that.
Yeah.
So it's like we had two different perspectives to work with, and
Mhm.
somehow kind of formed into what it ended up being last year. And
Yeah.
it was, I think it was a relatively, well, it is a super complex defense. It made it
Yeah.
really easy for us to play fast. And when we could use our speed and, rotate and play a lot of guys to stay fresh, I think that helped a lot.
Mhm.
And I think those combinations just kind of led to what was a really special defensive
Yeah.
year.
Oh yeah. Um, we kind of talked about this the other day, but I kind of want to ask you again. Like, what was that transition like for you personally, switching to the 3-3-5? Because here's what I'll say: is I kind of view it as you were still playing linebacker, but it was almost like you were playing a completely different position
Oh, yeah.
in a lot of
100%.
aspects. You know what I mean? Like you were still a linebacker, but you are moving, you're disguising yourself a lot more as opposed to feet in the ground. I'm gonna go hit somebody. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
whole different style of football. What was that? How was that transition for you personally?
Yeah, it was tough at first, honestly, and,
Mhm.
like, for me personally, just because like, we came from a very, like, NFL system
Yeah,
where
yeah,
it's more of a mentality of, "Okay, the offense is gonna know what we're running, and we know
mhm,
that, and we're gonna be better than them, and we're gonna know every single thing they can do and every issue that will come up." That
mhm,
was a big thing, and we're gonna key so well and read it so well that we're all gonna be in the same s like, the right spot.
yeah,
Where versus this year is the offense ain't gonna know what we're in, and we're just
mhm,
gonna run to the ball.
yeah,
That was like,
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah,
still gonna we're still gonna key, we're still gonna read, but they're not gonna be able to game plan and make these issue plays for us and, run
mhm,
these quarters beaters and cover
yeah,
three beaters. And so I think it was just it helped a lot being able to. It felt like a more even playing field almost, to where
Yeah.
like they're trying to hide stuff, we're trying to hide stuff, and okay, let's go play.
Yeah.
So, but it was tough for me because again, I was a guy who I love being in the box. I didn't blitz a lot. Like I was kind of the signal caller in the box, stay in the
Yeah.
box, go out and trips flex, but I know exactly what I'm doing. And
Mm-hmm.
but this was a lot different. I did a lot more things and I had a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting experience, but I think we all picked up on it fairly well.
Yeah, I agree. So there was a lot of people not even doubting what the defense would look like, just kind of questioning because it's not for especially the older school fans. Like it's a fairly new type of deal, like
Oh,
the three
totally.
three five
Mhm.
defense. I will tell you, as an offensive coach, I hate coaching against the three. I've coached in the 3-3-5 at whenever I was in like previous stop, and I loved coaching in it. Coaching against it this last season sucks
Oh,
so bad
it's brutal,
because
man.
one of the sayings that I took from a previous coach I coached with that implemented the 3-3-5 was that you never see the same front twice. Just
No.
because you can do so many different things with it. And something that I always try and explain to people who maybe don't understand. And I know you're a defensive guy, but I think you'll be able to resonate a little bit with this. Is I always think as an offensive coach, imagine trying to coach here your young quarterback. And if you're going against a 3-4 or a 4-3, but I'll use a 4-3 too high shell just to keep it nice and simple for the
Mhm.
viewers here, right? Okay, it's pretty simple. You know these four people are coming at me. Piece
Yeah.
of cake. These three linebackers, they're either showing blitz or if they do blitz, it'll be a late blitz. So
Yeah.
hopefully there's a pickup. But you kind of have a general idea of who's dropping. You know, you can get some surprises, but not nearly as much, right?
Yeah. For
In the
sure.
3-3-5, three people are coming at you for sure.
Yeah.
Those three linemen. You know, one, two, or maybe three are also coming,
Yeah.
but you don't know who.
Nope.
You don't know where from. And to make it even more complicated for a young quarterback's mind, they're all moving pre-snap.
Yeah. You're like, I have no idea what this coverage is.
They're all moving around, so you have no idea what's going on. So not
Uh-huh.
only are you trying to figure out the coverage, try and pre-snap a little bit, you're also trying to figure out who's coming to hit me. You
Yeah.
have no because that's the thing I really like about the defense is outside of maybe a safety, you can blitz people from everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
that's the thing.
super.
Something I really like about the defense is I say one of the easiest defenses to blitz a corner and not give up too much on the back end. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like I said, like you can bring pressure from anywhere, and that's why I hate coaching again. I absolutely hate it, especially if you get a good linebacking group in there that's really athletic.
Mhm.
I think that I'll just one of the teams that we played against this last year was they had very athletic linebackers, and it made our life hell because
Yeah.
you didn't know what you're getting.
Yeah.
If they come at you, you're really good. And I think one of my favorite parts about the defense, if you can get really good at it, you get a really good like outside backer type. If you have him walked up, if you get a guy that's athletic enough to get out to that flat, you are going to send quarterbacks for a freaking loop, man.
Mhm. You are. It's
Because
brutal.
one of the first reads, I mean, I can't speak. I've never coached at the college level, right? But at a high school level, one of the most basic reads, kind of that we kind of have our quarterbacks do a lot of times is where we're trying to attack. Look at that corner, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times, if you see that corner bail, a lot of times you're thinking that flat is probably going to be open for a
Yeah.
check down. If you can have that linebacker get out there, that's what I'm saying. You can throw these quarterbacks for a freaking loop.
Yeah. You definitely can. You can do so much with
Yeah.
the defense, and that's what we learned early too was
Yeah.
like, geez, like we're still like we're running a ton. Like it's still
Yeah.
football. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
We were nervous too. We're like, no one in the NFL runs it really, except the
Yeah. Yeah.
Panthers
Yeah.
did a little, but
Yeah.
it's different, man. It's
Mhm.
different.
Yeah. Um, so how was getting Tony White in there? How much did you guys learn about the defense from because everything that I've heard sounds like he was an amazing guy to learn from.
Mhm.
He's one of the only coaches on staff I've not been able to sit and talk football with. So that's a goal of mine in the next year or so, is to be able
Yeah.
to have a football conversation with him, because all the coaches at Nebraska have been so kind
Mhm.
to just literally answer any question I've ever had, like at a clinic. A couple of them I have their phone number. I've just texted them questions and they answered me, right?
Yeah.
But Tony White's someone I've not had the privilege to talk to. So I'm
He
kind of curious as to what like how much were you able to learn from him, and what was it, were you guys just able to like ask him questions and he'd explain, or there's a lot of different styles of coaching. What was it like with him?
Yeah, it was super good learning from him. I mean, he came in and he got to know us all personally right away, which we thought was, again,
Yeah.
super cool, and that's what this staff all had a huge emphasis on that as far as, like, we wanna get to
Mhm.
know you guys as men before we coach you, and that'll just make it easier, and so we after building that relationship, it was super easy to just, hey, go in his office and, like, why like, not in a bad way, but just, "Hey, why are we doing this? Like,
Mhm.
what if this happens? What if this happens?" You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just to learn his philosophy and how he calls it personally. Like there's not like this year there wasn't a lot of making checks. Like I
Mhm.
used to make, like I said, me and Luke make a ton of checks in
Yeah.
that previous staff as far as we have to always be looking out for certain things and thinking. And he this time he was basically like, no, like I'll make the checks by what I call. So like you
Mhm.
guys can just line up and play fast. And we're like, dang, that's kind of nice. Like that's I
Yeah,
don't
that's
have to
awesome.
be
That's awesome.
walking to the D line, the safeties, and tell 10 people where to go. It's kind of cool. So yeah, learning from him was great. He's super open and honest, and he wanted to
Yeah.
learn from us too. Like, which I
Mhm.
really appreciated. He was like, I know you guys are super smart football players.
Yeah.
Let's talk together and let's find out something that works for this group together. And I thought that
Yeah.
was super cool.
Yeah, something that I've gotten from Coach Rule, and it sounds like all the coaches on staff are all in alignment on this. Something I got from Coach Rule that he told me to my face was, make sure your players don't just understand what they're supposed to do, understand why they're supposed to do it. Because
Hmm.
then it just becomes a whole better understanding, and there's so much less thinking, in my
Yeah,
opinion. You know,
for
and
sure.
I do think a big reason that you guys had such a good defensive season last year was that you, like you said, you guys could go out there and play football. You guys can just go
Hmm.
around, run around, make hits. You guys had a really good tackling year, from my opinion, on the outside. So
Yeah, we definitely did.
I think explaining the why behind it and have the ability to have you guys ask questions. I'll say there's some older school coaches that just, I'm not even trying to like be a jerk or throw shade, but they're just like, nope, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we're doing it. And
Uh-huh.
hey, it may have worked to them. I'm a younger coach, so I'm very new school in the fact of like, no, I want these guys to ask questions.
Yeah,
I want them to
definitely.
know my thinking. And hey, sometimes these guys, they're on the field. They might see something that we don't.
Mhm.
Like, this may be what I'm seeing on the sideline. This may be what this guy's seeing from the booth. But these guys are on the field and they're saying, they might be able to say, Coach, this isn't there. I can't get there, or from this coverage, I'm having a hard time getting all the way out there. I
Mhm.
think those things are very important. And that's a big part of you guys understanding why. You guys can't communicate what you're seeing out there if you don't understand why, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
definitely,
Yeah.
100%.
So Coach Dvorak, right? I'm very
Oh,
high
yeah.
on him. I talk good about him to anybody that will listen to me. Right? I
Yeah,
think he has a very bright future in the coaching business. How important was he to you in the linebacker room last season?
yeah, I mean, he was absolutely crucial. Like I said, super young coach, but he's so smart and he's so good at what he does, and his greatest strength, I'll say this to everyone, is he'll help you out. He genuinely cares about you more as a man than as a player, and
Yeah.
that's something I like coaches will say that a lot, but there's not many that truly buy in and really will like sacrifice maybe even their standing and their job to keep you
Hmm.
healthy. Like there was so I've had, whatever, 7 surgeries and 2 other torn ligaments in my knees that he knew about. And his career ended because of knee injuries, so we bonded over that quickly. And I was coming off an ACL, and there were times where he would tell me like, "Listen, I know it's important to you to be out there, but I'm going to limit your snaps because I want your long-term health and I want you to be able to get through this season." Like he's like, "It's," and that's something that I appreciated right away. I remember going to his office in camp and I was like, I need more reps, man. This is my spot. You know what I mean? Like I'm coming off, I got to earn it back. And he was like, I know you're a great player. Like you're doing great stuff, but the reality is your knee is messed up. You know, it's old.
Yeah.
And I truly appreciated that he cared about me like that. And I never really had that before as far as like, no, we're going to take some off and like, we'll rotate you in the games, but it's like your long-term health comes before it. And even though I tore my ACL again later in the year, I think that if I was just playing how much I wanted to play, I think that would have happened way earlier probably. And
Hmm.
I was really grateful that I still had my senior year, even though it ended how it did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Something that I've always said, and I said this the other day, is the kids, the players, have to know how much you care before they'll
Hmm.
ever care about how much you know. And I know Coach Dvorak's, and I truly feel like all the coaches on Nebraska
Hmm.
staff feel that way. And that's something that I personally resonate with. That's something that part of me is because I'm a younger guy. I'm not that much older than some of the guys that I coach, right? So
Hmm.
I can resonate with them quite a bit. But I feel like that's a very important staff that I don't want to say gets overlooked, but something that you don't really think about when an outsider kind of looking into it is how important those personal relationships are between coach and player.
For
Like
sure. Yeah.
I think that's something that kind of gets overlooked sometimes. And I'm not saying this didn't happen under the previous staff. I'm just saying I see it publicly. I feel like a lot more.
Hmm.
I'm not saying it, you know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
it just makes me happy to like, I know for a fact that these guys are doing this,
Hmm.
making these personal relations, caring about you guys more than just football.
Yeah. I gotta say,
And
I'm lucky because like Coach Rude and Dvorak, they still text me, and
yeah.
I'm not in the room anymore. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? They still text a lot of the old guys quite a bit, and
Yeah.
that's a really special thing to be able to continue to be friends, like true friends, and
Yeah.
you know, because like when they say it's family, they really mean it. So
Mhm.
it's just a really good thing to do, and I appreciate both of them for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I've said on this show, I told you the other day, Coach Dvorak's one of my favorite people out there.
Oh
And
yeah,
as soon as I met him and he gave me his phone number, that was kind of like a holy cow moment for me.
yeah.
And there's literally just been times where I've just texted him and asked him a question and he answered me. And I'm
Hmm.
like, this is such a crazy world that I'm living right now that
Oh
I can
yeah.
text my favorite squad for my entire life, their linebackers coach, ask him a defensive question, and I just got an answer. Like,
Uh,
like to me, but that just shows the type of dude that he is, though.
oh yeah.
He's a genuine dude, and his recruiting area is Kansas City, right?
Hmm.
So he's down here quite a bit, and just building that personal relationship with him, and I think that him in the staff building relationships with the other high school coaches in the area it all over the state of Nebraska. It just helps because it also helps like when recruits start coming in of being
Hmm.
like their high school coach being able to tell them like, hey, this is a really good staff here. Like
Yeah.
I know
Like,
I've got to know them personally. And I'm sure that part of Dvorak staying in touch with me is partially due to that. I'm not but I do think he's a genuine good dude, you know,
he is. Yeah.
and that's something that I am very happy about and I'm glad that the University of Nebraska has him. I really am.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
I do think that being a defensive coordinator is in his future. I don't know if you feel the same way from an outside view talking with him. I think that's going to be in his, at some point, maybe
Yeah.
not in immediate, but he's definitely going to be a defensive coordinator. I'm not opposed to that happening at Nebraska at some point. That's all I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah. I think he's going to be able to do and coach whatever he wants to coach eventually. Like I said, he's still young, but
Yeah.
boy, he's gonna have a lot of great opportunities, and I hope Nebraska can keep him.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What was that like? So, kind of backtracking a little bit here.
Hmm.
To the end of the 2022 season, as we're kind of getting towards the end, you guys love playing for Mickey, right? You
Hmm.
guys all love Mickey Joseph. I think still
Absolutely.
love Mickey Joseph. I don't hear any bad things from anyone about him, right?
Hmm.
What was the initial thoughts when Matt Rhule gets hired? I'll tell you my thoughts, but I'll let you go. Like, what was your thoughts when Matt Rhule gets hired?
Yeah. So I think I've told this story a few times, I think, but I didn't play because against Iowa
Mhm.
because I had torn my ACL. I think a couple games before. So, but those like 3 4 games I did have with Mickey was some of the most fun
Mhm.
At that time, that was the most fun I ever had playing football was for Mickey.
Yeah.
Mickey and Bush and Rude, like those guys, like I was like, okay, like we're back. Like, you know what I mean? We started playing some better defense and we won a
Oh, yeah.
couple of games and we're like, okay, this is like this feels it just felt right. I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Like, I love football, like let's do it. And then, I tore my ACL. That sucked. But the rest of the year we're riding with Mickey. Like we were like, okay, like we want Mickey back. We went and told Trev that, like the captains, like we want Mickey back. We think he can, like he's the right man for the job. Yeah. And so then in the Iowa locker room, we see that Rhule got hired, like I did, and the
Mhm.
other guys that were injured. I think Luke was injured that game too. We were like, oh man, like we better keep this on the down low and like
Yeah.
just kind of bury it till after the game. But we get out, beat Iowa. Great, great moment. I was really lucky I could still be there, even though I wasn't playing. And then get back in the locker room, and now everyone starts to see it, and we're like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" Like, we're kind of upset. We are upset, honestly, because we're
Mhm.
like, we have this great coach here who would die for us. Like Mickey would do anything for us, and they're just going to bring in this outsider who no one knows, and so we were upset. And Mickey was very complimentary of Rule, and he was like, "No, like he'll do a great job." And he told
Mhm.
us he was going to try and stay on staff however he could and be around for us. Obviously, that didn't work out for
Mhm.
reasons,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
uh, it was tough. And then I think when we met Rule the first time, it was also hard because we met him. He talked to us for 10 minutes, and then he had to do a billion things. So it was like,
Mhm.
okay, is this what I mean? Like, is this just a guy who's doing this for him, like a money grab? Like, what is it? Obviously,
Mhm.
not as you get to know Rule, that's not
Yeah.
true at all.
Yeah.
And he couldn't be a
No,
better
but
kid.
I hear you though. I hear you.
Yeah. And then I will say it helped a lot that Coach Campbell stayed back and talked to all
Mhm.
of us. And he said like he vouched for Rule so much. And he even started like doing workouts with us when Rule and everyone was recruiting. He was like, hey, I'll be around, like come get this work in. And I think just getting to know him and respecting him within, a day, like right when I met him, I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I really like Campbell. I don't know, I haven't met Rule really, but
Yeah.
I know the strength staff is going to be legit, which was really cool. And then
Yeah.
as Rule got back and started spending time with us and us being around him, we're like, okay, this feels right. Like this is
Mhm.
good. Like let's do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Um, Kind of a personal question I have for you,
Hmm.
kind of involving this, and you don't have to answer. I'm kind of. Was there any thought or talk amongst any of you guys about ever transferring when Mickey didn't get hired? Not even necessarily about Rule, but like, was there ever any talk about like, I really wanted to play for Mickey? And let's be real, in today's college football world, a coach leaves. You
Hmm.
expect players to leave. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like, was there any thought for you personally, or was there any talk in the locker room? Like, what was that? Was there any thought of that?
Yeah. I'll honest, definitely. I mean, it was more of a like my house, like my best friends who I lived with was like Luke, Blaze, Nash, Garrett, Nelson, and myself. So, I mean, us five had a lot of talks as far as like, I mean, Nelly, he was, he was pretty confident. He was like, I'm healthy. I want to go to the NFL. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, I'm not going to have a better year than I did now. Like, let me go chase this dream while I can. We're like, okay, that
Mhm.
makes sense. Good. The rest of us are like, what do we do? And I
Yeah.
remember, I'm sure Luke wouldn't mind me telling this story. He's done one anyway. So, but he was like set on going to Kansas State for
Mm.
a little bit. He was like, I think I'm gonna enter the portal and see if I can't get because he's from Kansas and he was like, I might
Yeah.
try and go
Yeah.
back to K State. Like he grew up a K State fan, and then
Mhm.
so I really thought he was going to, and then I was
Wow.
like, man, if he does, like I might throw my hat out there. But I'm also
Mhm.
coming off a torn ACL, so I was like, I don't know if anyone wants damaged goods right now. I'm
Mhm.
sure I could have gotten something, but we ended
Yeah.
up all sitting down and talking, and we're like, you know what, we committed to Nebraska, right? And
Mhm.
we want like we're gonna stay here, period. We ended up just saying that as far as like if we win 8 games somewhere else, it's not gonna mean a darn thing, frankly. Like we
Yeah.
want to build here and we want to finish where we started with all the players that we came in with and whatever happens, happens. If we don't win a game, at least we went out on our shield. That's kind of what we
Yeah. Yeah.
ended up coming together and saying. But yeah, there were definitely thoughts about it.
Yeah. Well, I respect the hell out of that, and I respect the hell of the fact that you just like said that. And I'll tell you, as a Nebraska fan, thank you for staying.
Oh man,
I really like you, and I would have continued to like you, but I think I like you even more knowing that you stayed despite the. You know what I mean?
oh, I appreciate that. That's seriously like, yeah, there's pros and cons, and I think life, especially nowadays in the portal, it's a lot of
Yeah.
easy way outs. And I'm not
Mhm.
trying to diss anyone who transfer. Like
Mhm.
I get it, and
Yeah.
but to me personally, it was something that like, you know what, screw it. Like if I don't win
Yeah.
another game, at least I did the what I viewed as the right thing. So
Yeah. I respect that.
mhm,
So once you had kind of like, you guys decide you're going to stay at Nebraska, and as you get to know Rule more, and you love Rule, you love his staff.
mhm,
How much did you know about the single digit kind of tradition, like
mm,
what that means for him? I'll say when he was at Temple, I freaking love that, man. Like
yeah,
I love the whole single digit thing. And I'll be real, I didn't even realize at the time because like I said, I'm young. I wasn't that wise. I didn't even realize that was a Rule thing. I thought it was a Temple thing.
yeah. I
And it turns
honestly
out it
did
was
too.
I legitimately thought that was a Temple thing. I didn't know that was a Matt Rhule thing. So when I
Uh-huh.
hear that he's going to implement that I mean, he was at Baylor too, but whenever he got to Nebraska and he was going to, how much did you know about that coming in?
I really didn't know. I didn't know a thing, honestly. And
Hmm.
when he started explaining it, I was like, okay, there's no single digits, like they're going to be earned. I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. But
Yeah,
then there's honestly a little part of me that was like, dang, I've been 42 for a while. Like that's kind of my number. And
yeah,
then as fall camp came around and the first single digits got handed out, and it was like, wow, like this is pretty sweet. And he kind of was explaining at the beginning of camp, and I was like, okay, yeah, I want one of those. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta like I think I'm one of the toughest guys. Like let me go earn one of these. And then as it he was handing out the single digits, and I think it was me, Nash, and John Bullock who went up there, and he told us three were getting some too because we got voted. I was like, oh,
oh
this
yeah,
is it was honestly a real similar feeling to getting my black shirt for the first time.
hmm,
And just for me, wearing a new number 3, I wore it for Will Honus, who his career ended because of knee injuries too, and he taught me so much. And it was a surreal moment, like I said, similar to getting the black shirt, and I'm really glad I wore it, and I can't wait to see who wears it now. Now it's kind of the fun part as far as like you can see like, okay, I was the first step of this new tradition at Nebraska. Like we were the first class to be able to
yeah,
do that, and I think that's also super super cool. So I'm
yeah.
excited to see who wears,
That's awesome.
yeah, number 3 this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's some. I thought it was really cool that like you could just tell looking on the field like who the dudes were.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's something that I am going to. There's a lot of things when I become a head football coach. Because I'll just tell you, like one of the biggest goals of my life is this going to happen. I won't give up until it does. I'm gonna be a head high school football coach one
Heck
day.
yeah,
Like
man.
I'm still young and I still got lots of time to learn and do. But like that's a huge goal of mine since I've been a little kid, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, I've had a couple interviews, but I'm so young. Like there's no real shot, you know.
It's tough. Yeah,
but hey,
yeah.
hey, I wanted to sit on some of these interviews just so I get the chance to know what it's like.
Hmm.
What am I going to get asked? But something I'm going to steal from Coach Rule, I think, is going to be some of this single digit.
Oh,
I really like it. So wherever I end up, that's something that I am going to try and implement from day one. I think that's just such a cool thing.
it is super cool. Yeah, I love that. Like I said, our class got to be the first
Yeah, yeah,
Nebraska
yeah,
group
yeah.
of single digits. Like that to me was really special, and I was really lucky to be a part of that.
Mhm. Oh yeah. So kind of after last season, what led to the decision to you hanging up the cleats?
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
kind of led to that? Because I mean, I completely understand, but I'm bummed out about it. You know, like
Oh, me
I
too, man.
understand. I'm bummed just as someone who really likes you. So what
Yeah.
kind of led to that, decision to have that happen?
Yeah. Well, right when, like I said, I'd torn this one twice, and right when it happened in Wisconsin, I was like, oh, like I don't want to cuss, but like darn,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
there it is again. I was hurting. I knew right when the trainers got out there, I was like, it's like that's it. Like it blew out again. Had the knee brace on too. Hated wearing that thing. But
Yeah.
uh so after I get the MRI right the day after, doctor comes in and was like, yeah, like it's torn, it's pretty
Mhm.
bad. Not not looking good for your football future at all. Like if you want to be a healthy man, you probably should. And if you do come back, you're probably going to tear it again, just based on
Yeah.
how it is. Said it reminded him a lot of Will Honus's knee, which caused him to stop playing. Which
Mhm.
at least I thought I was like, well, at least it's like my buddy Honus. But it's yeah. Then I remember right after that, it's super emotional time for me. I just went out and started walking on the field, and I called my dad, and I started just crying and saying like, man, like I think that's it. I think my body's
Mhm.
had enough. And he started crying and started talking about he remembers the first time he took me to football practice, and just a
Mhm.
real good like closing of the chapter. And then Dvorak, before I could even text him, was sprinting down to the training room to give me a hug and
Yeah.
talk to me and said like, yeah, man, like it's probably best if it's done. And it's like you
Mhm.
had a hell of a career and you can be really proud of it. So I mean, I still pondered it for a while, honestly. Like I thought about it. I was like, man, if I came back for my 6th year, I'd have to miss my entire 6th year for sure. And then still rehab it that following off season. And at that point, I'm gonna be 25.
Yeah.
Just to come back for it to probably tear again, to me, it was God
Mhm.
telling me it's time to move on and be proud of what you did, but you still have your whole life ahead of you. And
Yeah, 100%.
That's kind of where that decision came in. Which I made it probably 2 days after the Iowa game. I think I was like, okay, like
Mhm. Yeah.
that's over, and it was a great chapter.
Yeah. So I'll tell you from the outside, as a fan of yours, like, just thank you for everything
Mm.
you did for people like me who sit at home on a Saturday and watch you get angry. You give us something, you know what I mean? So
oh,
thank you for literally sacrificing your body for us, you know?
oh man, I appreciate that. It was, yeah. That 5 years at Nebraska was more highs and lows than I ever thought it
Yeah.
would be, and it was also way better than I could have asked for. So I really appreciate you saying that, and I'm a lucky man to have gone through it all.
Yeah. So now that you've kind of closed that chapter
Hmm.
of what does the state of Nebraska and the University of Nebraska, what's that really mean to you now that you've, I don't want to say moved on, but like you're no longer there, like
Yeah,
what's all that mean? Like the people of Nebraska, like what's that all mean to you?
yeah, I think there's part of me that was like, I wanted to get away and just like have some time to breathe from it all a little, honestly. And that's where I was like, told you I moved out to Northern California with my
Hmm.
girlfriend who was on the rifle team there. But it's total just gratitude and thankfulness. Anytime I still get messages from fans and kids like, hey, I loved watching you. I got the opportunity to train a lot of high school kids in that kind of area when I was
Hmm.
there that semester, and it was just a blast. It's total gratitude for the whole state for even since I was in high school, just being so supportive to me. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's always going to hold a real special place in my heart. Lincoln. I don't know if I'll ever live there again, but
Hmm.
I'll definitely come back and visit and go to a game. And like I'm really appreciative of all the fans and everything that
Yeah,
everyone
that's
did
awesome.
here. Hmm.
Hey, hey, if you next time you end up at a game in Lincoln, let me know. I'd love to meet up with you.
Yeah,
Just
that'd be
talk for a few
awesome.
minutes.
Then we'll
You're a really good dude, man.
Oh, so are you. I'll be pissed off on Twitter with you now. I'm gonna be, what the heck are they doing? So no, I'll
Hey,
be the
we can bond over it, man.
yeah, no, I'll be the fan side of it. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be different, but it'll be fun.
Yeah. As I kind of wrap this up, just one of the questions that I talk. So my younger brother, he's a student at the
Hmm.
university, and one of the things, 'cause I was like, hey, what is something I should ask Nick? Right? He said, I think you should. What are you up to nowadays? What's kind of next for you now that you've moved out to California? Like, what's next on your short term agenda here?
Yeah, my short term agenda is just I'm still figuring it out, frankly. I
Mhm.
mean, football was it was such a big part of my life, and I'm kind of I'm working on finding that next fulfillment. Really, I'm actually
Mhm.
coaching high school out here as well,
That's awesome, man.
which has been I'm a
That's awesome.
the linebackers coach at the high school here,
Wow.
and it's
That's legit.
I tell you what, when you like hearing you say things as a coach, I couldn't agree more. And
Mhm.
honestly, it gives me so much joy to see those guys be successful and how well they. I got a great group of backers, honestly. Like I'm
Yeah.
lucky. It's first year. Like I'm spoiled. They're all really good dudes, and it's been amazing just passing on knowledge to them. And so along with that, I'm gonna do that and kind of look for work in a
Mhm.
multitude of areas to where I can still impact people and
That's
you
awesome.
do whatever I can to make the world a better place. And yeah, I don't know. We'll
It
see.
that makes me so happy to know that you're coaching
Hmm.
because you just the couple interactions I've had with you over the last week or so, like you kind of have that coaching. I'm trying to figure out how to word this, but like I can tell, like you have the part that you care about. You're a good dude, and I
Oh,
know you care about those kids, and that makes me very happy to know that you're into this world of coaching because it's a crazy thing. And I'll tell you, as someone, I know I'm not much older than you, but I've been doing this a little bit longer than you
hmm.
know on the coaching side. You'll love them, but they'll still drive you nuts, and
Oh
that's part
yeah.
of the fun. It's part of the fun, you
Yeah,
know.
it totally is. Right on.
That's awesome, and I'm gonna have to follow up, and I'll follow up with you kind of later as the season progresses, see how you guys are doing because
Absolutely.
that's
Center
awesome.
high football, baby.
That's
We got a
awesome,
good
man.
squad this year, so
That's awesome, man.
uh
But
absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of all I had for you. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me today.
It was a
I
blast.
y- yeah, you killed it. I love talking with you. I feel like I could sit and talk with you forever. Like you're easy to sit and talk to, and that's awesome. So thank you so much for not only what you did for the University of Nebraska and the football program, but like just thank you for sitting down and talking with me and giving my audience a chance to get to know you a little bit.
Absolutely, man. I seriously had a blast, so appreciate you having me on and good luck this season to you and the fellas.
Yeah. Thank you, man. But
Right on.
yep, that's all I had for you. So as I kind of wrap this up, I will just do what I always do here. Is I always throw out my bones and say GBR and
CBR,
and
baby.
and in rule we trust. That's kind of what I throw in there too.
All right. Rule we
All right.
trust, man.
Yes, in rule we trust. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Thank you, coach.